a paid program. Advice and opinions expressed during the program are solely that of Jung's Garden Center, not WBEV or Good Karma Brands. Let's join Thomas Rainfolt for the Garden Doctor Show.
Thank you so much, L.A. And yes, welcome back to the Garden Doctor, taking your calls throughout the show, of course, 885-4446. Also, your text messages on 887-9595. And we are joined with the Garden Doctor, Leah Stark, this morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
So if I do recall from speaking last year, you have been working at the center for 20 years. So you started when you were, what, 3?
Just about.
Yeah, the numbers are adding up there. Well, let's just start real quickly. Why do you like working at Jung's?
I like the flexibility that they offer for me and my family. If my children are sick or if they have something going on at school, I can take off and do activities with them without being penalized for too much. You know, it's not abused by any means, but yes, and we've got good hours, and it's just it's a family-owned company. You know, there's a lot of flexibility, great people to work with. So, and when I first started with Jung's, I was new to the area, and so I needed a job, and I didn't know Madison area at all, and I was too chicken to take that on, and so the job has been with me for 20 years.
Well, you've been a great addition to the team. Dick is always so excited to talk about what he's working on. I know that he's really excited about his YouTube channel and the Garden Doctor on YouTube, and working on some new videos. He's been really into raised beds this year. Has that kind of been in your world a little bit too?
Yep, it's a good trend right now. A lot of people don't elderly gardeners, they don't want to bend down and be on their knees. They have back problems, hip problems, you know. So this is just a little bit easier way to garden without being as physical.
And I guess while we're on the subject of raised beds, Dick was talking about how for some of the beds that he would have wood chips that he would fill in the bottom of them. He also said that you could use sticks or maybe other debris you had at your home to fill in some of that space. You're not filling the entire container with dirt. What are some of the other tricks or tips that you have with raised beds?
Yeah, so certainly what Dick has also said, to that I would just make sure that you aren't using any material that is diseased or has been infected with a bunch of insects, box elder bugs, you know, things like that. It's no problem, but if you have a pest or a disease problem, certainly don't use that material. In smaller containers, I personally have used like pop cans, or like styrofoam peanuts, you know, things that kind of help take up that space but don't compact in the pot. Same could be true for the raised bed, but in time, you know, the sticks and that will break down in your raised bed. But it's also good to keep amending that soil in your raised bed. After, you know, a few years, all the nutrients will start to leach out. So, you know, to refresh it would be good.
We do have a caller on the line, and let's go there right now and say good morning. What is your question for the Garden Doctor?
I've got a couple comments. I started some tomato plants in January. They range in size from 4 to 9 inches. Is there any advantages or disadvantages of pinching them out?
How tall are they?
4 to 9 inches.
4 to 9 inches. I have heard of people doing that. I haven't done that. Problem is, with January, they're going to be long and leggy. I would certainly, I would experiment with some. How many seedlings do you have? I was going to maybe suggest
I only started 4 of them. I was just doing it for the fun of it. But.
Sure. I would maybe pinch a couple of them and just kind of have your own experiment with it. See how they do. What I would recommend is maybe, I'm not sure what your growing condition is at home, but try to keep them on the cooler side so they don't grow as fast. prior to setting them out, because if they're in a nice warm environment right now, they're just going to continue to grow, and then it'll be harder to harden them off when the time comes.
Okay, thank you, and have a nice day.
Thanks, you as well.
Thank you. So that is fairly early for tomatoes.
Yes.
That's about 8 weeks, a little early for
Yes.
most people.
Yep. We recommend tomatoes like 4 to 6 weeks prior to setting them outside, which would be like the last frost date. We generally say around Mother's Day. Mother's Day can be early, the first weekend in May. Sometimes, like this year, it's the second week. And depending on where you are in the state, it might even be Memorial Day.
Okay.
So,
Wow.
and peppers especially, they like to be warmer. So shoot for that Memorial Day time frame for planting your peppers.
So Dick has always been really worried about leggy tomatoes, and that is, I guess they're getting too much nitrogen, they're getting too long, they're not able to support themselves.
Yep.
What did you mean by pinching them off?
So if you can imagine a tomato plant, he would pinch out the center of the plant, and then it'll start branching from the lateral shoots.
So it'll start growing more
Yep.
horizontally.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Okay.
And then you would like try to maintain like a leader of the plant, if you will.
Now, tomatoes seem to be really manipulative in that part of it, of defoliating or pinching them.
Mm-hmm.
Are they? What other vegetables are kind of like tomatoes in that aspect?
Well, like pumpkins and squash will benefit from like pinching the some of the flower blossoms off, especially if you're trying to grow like bigger pumpkins. So then all the energy is going to that one fruit rather than 8 or 9, 10 fruits along that one vine.
So that's how you get the 2,000-pound pumpkin.
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
you do have to have the right seed for that as well.
Of which you guys have while we're on the subject of seeds, a great selection of heirlooms as well as the
Yep.
usual varieties.
Yes. I don't know the exact number, but we do offer a lot of heirloom varieties as well.
I want to circle back to what we mentioned about raised beds and mentioning not including disease material within the bed, which is very important. But when we are composting, do we want to include material that is disease, or do we want to exclude that generally? Is the heat from compost enough to kill off the disease?
Depends on what it is. Most of the time, our small compost piles that we have at home do not heat up enough to kill that pathogen. So I would recommend not using it. Putting it in the trash. If you have a burn barrel, burn it that way. But yeah, certainly don't reuse it.
Now, Dick is always talking about compost and basically using that as like part of a 30-30-30 mixture.
Yep.
Do you guys have a massive compost pile then at the garden center?
For our company, we do, but not for the public. Yep. So, like the compost that we have one brand that comes from the Purple Cow Company. I think it's in Middleton, which is, recycled from the Purple Cow factory. The compost that we create at our company goes to our compost, and over time that is broken up and then spread amongst our fields that we have.
You have a lot of great soil starting kits for organic-minded gardeners or otherwise.
Yep.
A lot of pea-based products there, the Jiffy cups that are always nice to have.
Yep.
Something else that's very exciting at the garden center, the Bare Root Room is finally open.
Finally open, yes.
Yes.
Yes, so we are open. We opened last Friday. Still have a pretty good selection of bare root material. We actually have peaches this year, so yay,
Ooh.
that's exciting. We've been without the last few years. There have been some crop failures this year. I don't have the list with me. A few apples and cherries and such, but definitely a better selection than what we have had. Mostly that was supply and demand too from our vendors.
So the Bare Root Room would be fruit trees, as you mentioned,
Yep.
bushes, shrubberies.
We do have some shrubs available. Shrubs, we have asparagus roots, potatoes, that all kind of strawberries, that all falls under our bare root category.
So if someone never has bare rooted before, why would the bare root room be kind of a fun adventure for somebody?
Well, they are dormant material, so everything is dormant right now. You can plant it right now. The advantage to that is the system is a lot smaller. They take off a little bit better. Some people like the convenience of digging a smaller hole versus a larger hole for a potted tree. Our potted material will be available probably the end of the month too. So if
Okay.
you can't find it in our bare root material, don't give up on us. Well, we will have it as a potted plant as well. But bare root, you can certainly plant it now while it's dormant. Sometimes I've noticed bare root at other businesses that are greened out already, and that's, you kind of want to avoid that. So that has sort of been a forced dormancy, and that you need to take a little bit more care of that one, as far as like the nighttime temperatures and putting that plant through more stress than what it really needs to be.
So if somebody was interested in peaches, they've wanted a peach tree for years,
Mm-hmm.
you would have the instructions on the proper spacing and where that would need to be
Yes,
placed.
absolutely. Yep. And apples, for example, we have different, we have dwarf, semi-dwarf, and standard trees, and that spacing is even different than a normal tree. So we've got all that literature at our stores. You might be able to find it on some of the blogs too. Not sure what's been posted on the websites and such, but we certainly have it, and you can certainly call in and we can give it to you as well.
If we were to plant a peach tree somewhere around the radio station, I don't know where, we'd have to fly in some soil or something. When would we might expect it to start fruiting?
Usually 3 to 5 years. A lot of it depends on our late season frosts too, because that can also kill off the blossoms. And you also have to kind of take in consideration what kind of critters you might have around, squirrels, raccoons, because once they start fruiting, they see that as well, and they're hungry too.
Taking your questions for the garden, Dr. Leah Stark, 887-9595, the talk text line. You can also call in 885-4446. We also had a question earlier today about mums, and somebody wanted to know when they could cut off mums. Now, I thought there are some late fall varieties of mums, but are there spring varieties too?
So most of the mums are, they bloom in the fall. If you have a perennial mum at your house, you can certainly start cutting them as they grow. Usually they say by like 4th of July, you'd want to stop pruning, and that encourages more bushy, a bushier plant and more blooms in the fall rather than like here and there throughout the season.
So by July?
Yep, so up until.
Okay.
Yep, you want to just kind of keep pinching it back a little bit.
So you can keep pinching the mums until July?
Yes.
All right.
Yep.
What other flowers might we want to be pinching off then? Would geraniums be something in that category?
Nope, geraniums you would just want to deadhead as the flowers are spent. Nothing is coming to mind. You put me on the spot.
Well, that's what we try to
Right,
not do, and
right.
yeah, maybe a little bit of both. Something that is also very exciting as we talk about spring and summer, strawberries comes to mind. You guys have a strawberry growing guide.
Yes.
You've been getting a lot of conversation or a lot of questions about strawberries.
Yep. So we have a lot of strawberries available in our stores and online as well. Perfect time to start planting them. They come dormant. There's 25 in a bunch. Definitely worth investing into. Can't beat a fresh strawberry. And we've got all the information that you need for getting that strawberry bed ready to go.
Are all the berry bushes, they are all full sun?
Yes.
Fruits?
Yes. They do better in full sun. They will tolerate some partial sun, but the more they have, the better they'll produce.
for that. Okay. 887-9595 if you have a question. You also have some updated websites as well. You have the catalog at jungseed.com, and junggardencenters.com is the new revamped website.
Yes, so there was a lot of confusion between the garden centers and the seed company, which is the catalog. We did have, and we still do have the garden center tabs on that seed company website, but we wanted to branch off just so it's a little more defined. So if you're searching Jung Garden Centers, then that website comes up and it's not to the catalog. A lot of confusion comes in with our business hours because Jung Seed Company, their hours are different than our garden centers. And there's different products that we sell in the garden center that we might not have in our catalog, and so we try to promote it on the garden center website.
Well, it is a beautiful website from what I've checked out so far, and let me know if the Bear Room was open. So, and we could also mention real quickly the new hours, the spring hours you guys have now.
Yes, our spring hours start at the end of March. We are 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, and 9 to 4 on Saturdays. And we are never open on Sundays in Randolph. Our Madison stores they have a little bit different hours, but certainly call ahead to those stores if you need to know what those are.
885-4446 is our number. We do have a call right now. Let's go to the phones and say good morning. What is your question for the garden doctor?
Hi. First of all, I have a comment. I took your advice and planted grass seed really late in the fall last year, and I want to tell you I got grass growing, so that was a good thing.
Nice.
So, yeah, I was pleasantly surprised. And the second question I have is with arborvitae. I planted them last year in July. Faithfully watered them. Took the advice of yours and put some Mir acid because in the fall of the year I noticed some browning in the center of the plant. I want to know if I should still be putting fertilizer on them this spring or not.
Yes, absolutely. And also monitor the moisture, too. I know we just had some rain. If we get into dry periods, certainly start watering. I wouldn't fertilize just yet, but when they start actively growing, when the temperatures get warmer, there's more sunshine, probably starting in mid-May,
Okay.
I would start fertilizing around that time.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yep,
and
you're
thanks
welcome.
for the tip on the grass.
Yeah, of course. And certainly if you need to reseed in any areas this spring, now is a great time to look at that and add more if you feel you need to.
Yeah, any other year I wouldn't have planted grass this early, but since I was shocked that it came up already. So
Nice.
thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Have a nice day.
You too. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for the question. I'm glad that really worked out for her. I believe
Yeah.
we have another caller. Let's go back to the phones and say good morning. What is your question?
Hi, I have my first time hydrangea grower, and I'm wondering when you close them or cut them off for the summer.
Do you know what type of hydrangea you have?
I don't know.
Did it bloom for you last year?
Yes.
Was it like blue or pink or round or white or conical shaped?
I can't even remember, but I think it was pink.
Okay, because there's two different ways to prune hydrangeas. The macrophylla type is they're usually pink, blue, or purple. They've got really large leaves. Those we want to prune after they're done flowering, or wait until the spring when you see the foliage when they're starting to break bud, because they flower on old wood. A lot of times those flower blossoms or flower buds are killed throughout the winter. So we really struggle with that type. If it's paniculata or an arborescens, those are like the big puff balls. Those you can trim to the ground in the fall or early spring now. So a lot of it just depends on what type you have. If you have any pictures, or we can certainly try to identify what you have.
Okay. I will definitely check that out because I'm not sure exactly what kind it is. But it was a big blossom on it. They were very big.
Sure. I'm guessing it's a macrophylla type, so that one you would want to wait and see how they come out of their dormancy.
All right, because last year I left the remaining flowers on there, so they're all brown now.
Yep. And as they start to break bud, you should see they should break bud along the dormant stems.
Okay.
If not, then you would cut it down to the ground.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Have a nice day.
Thank
Thank
you for that question so much. I have a few follow-up questions on that, but I believe we have another caller. So let's go back to the phones and say good morning. What's your question for the garden doctor?
Good morning. I have a peach tree that's probably 5 years old or so. Last fall I called in and asked because it has not blossomed at all yet what I could do, and he said that it might be a little late, but I could try to like bat the trunk of it with a bat or something. Now, I did that, and so I'm just wondering, is there anything else this spring that I could do for it?
Yes. So hitting it with the bat should help it. It's something that we often recommend when we hear fruit trees not blossoming. I would start fertilizing it probably within a few weeks once the temperatures start warming up and they start breaking bud. You might get a few more this year, but still kind of keep that practice in your mind, hitting it again next winter when it's dormant. They also benefit from a little bit of pruning too. So it's kind of like when you prune them, then they're thinking like, oh, I need to regenerate myself, and they go into this cycle where they will produce more flowers, and like it's like a stress, and they need to try to correct that.
Okay, and what kind of fertilizer should I use, and how close to the root balm should it be?
It all depends on what type of fertilizer you end up with. There are spikes that you can put into the ground. There are water soluble that you can just mix with a gallon of water and pour that on around the root base. It's really your preference, and that's something that if you're in our stores, we can certainly walk you through that.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Have a nice day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for that question. And going back to the previous caller, it always fascinates me how in a single family, like in the hydrangeas, they can have so many different ways of tending to them. Like, but none of them are the same.
Correct. Just like you and I, we're not the same.
That's true.
You know, so we have different needs too. But yeah, that's part of the plant world is none of them are the same. There's different genus and species out there, and the hydrangeas, I know Dick loves the hydrangea questions, the pruning questions, and we hear that a lot. So it's really just knowing what type you have, and there's a lot of good references out there too that we can help to try to identify what you have.
I know that you're pretty well read on all of the different caretaking, but did you find that the most experience that you had, especially when it came to learning about different types of hydrangea, that being hands-on and actually growing it, was that the best teacher for you?
Yeah, it was hands-on. I mean, you can't be hands-on, with whatever you're working with. That's how we retain our information better.
I wasn't going to point this out, but I do notice that you have clean fingernails, and every time that Dick has come in so far, they've been really dirty, and I've always kind of enjoyed, what's Dick planting today?
Right.
So
Yep.
The lavender's already been taken care of.
Well, I have to say that at my house I have a nail brush and at the kitchen sink, at the bathroom sink, in the shower, and it's not that it bothers me, but I try to keep them somewhat
badge
clean.
of honor. This is the Garden Doctor. The views and opinions expressed are solely that of Jung's Garden Center, not WBEV, ESPN, or Good Karma Brands. We have another caller on the line. Let's go back to the phone. Say good morning. What's your question? Hello, you.
Yes. Good morning.
Good morning.
I was wondering what's the best method on planting parsnips?
Ooh. I don't personally have any experience with parsnips, but I think they're a smaller seed.
Yes, they look almost like a small flat oatmeal seed.
Right. I would.
And what I was understood that you're supposed to soak them overnight.
Oh.
That I honestly don't know that. Is there any direction on the seed packet that says so? I would certainly follow that if there is.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, but I was just wondering if what kind of soil and that kind of stuff, or what kind of fertilizer I should put with them and that stuff. I'll have to look at my almanac. That tells me a lot of stuff.
Sure. Definitely some loose garden soil. I think they're going to struggle if you have clay. You'd really want to amend the clay soil, loosen that up. I would say you probably would keep an eye on the spacing, like
okay.
you would carrots or beets or radishes.
Right,
Don't
right.
overcrowd them because they are a root vegetable and they
Right.
need that space. If they're competing with each other, then they're going to be smaller.
And another question I wanted to ask you, Nessa, is there a possibility that olive trees would grow in Wisconsin?
I think there are some invasive types, but I don't think there's anything on the market that I know of anyway. I could be wrong. I've been wrong before. Won't be,
Well, no.
I
The old saying goes, if you don't know, you got to ask.
Right. I know that's something that we don't carry. I'm not saying that it's not out there, but I do know that there are some invasive olives out there.
Huh. That's what I read on them in that stuff. If you do them green and that stuff, you get the olive oil, and if you let them get ripe and that stuff, then you got the black ones.
Sure, and they might not even be zone hardy too. The ones that would produce like that. It's something that I'm not familiar with.
Okay.
But that's it certainly could be out there.
And I'm waiting for spring to get her, but I guess by next week it's supposed to be in the 70s.
That's what I hear. I'm looking forward to that.
I am too. And then another thing I was going to ask you, Nessa, if you got to watch tonight in the sky, is it's going to be a pink moon.
Oh,
Ooh.
I will certainly look
That'd
for
be
that.
awesome, wouldn't it?
That would be gorgeous. A little color right before the flowers start.
Right? Nice.
Thank you so much
But
for the.
anyway, thank you for all your advice and that stuff, and I'll see you. Or if you do come up with what kind of olive tree grows in Wisconsin and that stuff, you can always put it on the air.
All right, we will do.
Thank you so
All
much.
right, thank you very much.
Have a nice
and
day.
And you have a good Easter.
Yep, you as well.
All right, thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Great question about parsnips. I know nothing about parsnips. It looks like, though, from what I did find, that they take a long time to germinate, 21 to 28 days.
Yeah, and it's not something that I personally grow, so I don't have the experience with it. But yeah, in my head, I would treat them like a carrot. I mean, same germination, same spacing, everything like that. Because they are a root vegetable and they need that space in the ground to produce that part of the plant, and if we overcrowd, then they're going to be a lot smaller.
We were looking at parsnips this morning. I believe they are in the a tuber, but there was something else mentioning about interplanting the parsnips with radishes to help mark out the lines where they might be.
Yes, I have done that too, and I've also heard like letting the radishes go to seed, so then like the pollinators will come and feed on that too. But the radishes, yes, radishes are a quick season, and they, certainly use them to mark the rows too.
Do you recommend having those sort of interplanting relationships of using a radish or something else to draw in pollinators to maybe assist tomatoes growing their fruits?
Yeah, I definitely plant different flowering plants, like the radishes too. I let some go to seed. The more flowers you have around your vegetable garden, the more pollinators you'll have, and for your tomatoes, your cucumbers, and whatever.
887-9595 is our text line. You can also call in 885-4446. So I was really excited. I've started some things indoors and really kind of getting back into the world of starting seeds and gardening. and I started some chard, and some of it is actually doing quite well, and I'm really surprised by it. But I picked up the seed starting supplies at Jung's, and I was starting, and I realized that in the very beginning, I was keeping the covers on, and I had a lot of moisture in there, and it was a lot of humidity, and I started getting mold growth in my
Yep.
individual cells.
Yep.
So
Yep, that'll
what do I
hap-
need to be worried about there?
So when that happens, you remove that cover, you give it air circulation. That's what it needs. Needs to dry out. It should be okay unless the seedling is too little yet. Sometimes that mold will inhibit growth and they'll just kind of fizzle out. But if you can dry it out, if you need to put a fan on it for some time, but it shouldn't be too much of a concern. I would just, certainly remove that dome, the humidity, and it should work out.
Do you want a little extra humidity just starting off to help with the germination process?
Yes, a lot of things require warmer temperatures, peppers especially, and that you would want to create as much warmth as you can with a heat mat, with a plastic dome cover. And then once the seedlings emerge, then you can slowly take some of that away.
And I'm trying to go through some therapy with my issue of chronic overwatering because I water everything so much. And again, making sure it's completely dry before
Yes.
we add more water.
Yes, it's always easier to overcorrect underwatering than it is overwatering.
I did manage to finish up some sriracha, and I thought, the sriracha bottle is actually the perfect size to use for a little drop-by-drop watering.
Oh,
if I
sure.
need to.
Yep.
So, yeah, sriracha coming through in another way.
Nice.
But it is really exciting starting seeds indoors, and I'm also realizing the importance of really having that heat tray because that extra heat really helps those seeds take off.
Yep. There's a lot. Most everything will benefit from it. Not everything needs to have it, but certainly will help it.
And when it comes, I know that Dick is pretty simple about it for starting seeds. You could just use like peat moss. And maybe in the beginning, I had mixed in some worm castings and some bone meal.
Yeah.
Does it matter what we mix into our starting soils?
We just don't want fertilizer. We don't want anything real heavy either. Some soil mixes out there are more for garden or for our gardens, our actual gardens, than like a container. So we don't want a heavy soil like that. We want good aeration in the soil. We don't want it to be too compact. Those little seedlings need air and they need movement to set their roots down. And if they're fighting for that in that compact soil, they'll just kind of peter out and not survive.
So that's one plus of the peat moss had some like chopped up, mulched up sticks in there, something to create some pathways.
Yep. So there's moisture in it, but if you're adding others, perlite, vermiculite, that which is usually found in most soil mixes, that is what you want to have. So the roots have a place to go and have some oxygen in there, and they're not sitting heavy in heavy soil.
It is really fun taking matter with the soil, and because it's kind of like our own lives. We're trying to balance in a healthy diet and get exercise, and like with the soil, you're trying to make sure it has enough phosphorus and enough nitrogen, but not too too much. And there is this elegant little dance required.
Yes, and if you are uncertain of what you might need to add to your soil, we do have soil testing kits at our stores. Also, the UW has they do a pretty thorough test. I think it's like a $20 test that you can do. You submit different soil samples to the lab, and they'll tell you what you need and whether you're high in nitrogen or higher in phosphorus, and how to balance that out so you have a healthier soil.
So just this kind of just popped in my head mentioning the worm castings and having aeration in our soil. Do we want to encourage earthworms in our gardens? And if so, how do we do that?
Yes, so earthworms are very beneficial in our soils. The one we have to watch out for is the jumping worms, because they can be invasive. And if you find anything, plant material, a lot of people will go to their local compost pile. Be careful of using that because you don't know where that compost has come from. Most soil mixes are clean and they should be free of that. The more organic material that you add, shredded leaves, grass clippings if your lawn hasn't been treated, even like your coffee grounds, your ground up eggshell, different things like that. If you add to your soil, the beneficial microorganisms, the earthworms, they'll kind of all migrate there because that's where they're feeding, that's where they're breeding. And the more organic material you can add to your soil, the healthier it'll be.
And that could be anything from wood chips to just hay being mulched on top.
Right. Yep. If it's weed free, if you know you're having a lot of problems with weeds in the hay, I'd kind of maybe steer clear of that. But usually, it's okay to add all that as well.
Is there anything that we should be starting inside if we are starting seeds indoors? What we can start this week?
Oh, this week, there's still time to do tomatoes. We're getting a little bit late on peppers, not to say that it can't be done. Think of when you are wanting to plant out in your garden, say that Memorial Day date, count the weeks back from that. If it's, I don't know exactly, 6 weeks out, so you've got 6 weeks before you can plant in your garden. Things like petunias or geraniums, they take 10 to 12 weeks, so that time period has passed. You're better off just buying the finished plant and going from there.
So I haven't been to Jung's for about 3-4 weeks right now. Are you guys selling plants in the greenhouse?
We don't have any greenhouse material just yet. We're hoping the end of April, 1st of May. A lot of that will depend on the weather because we don't have a heated greenhouse. But that's when they are set to arrive, and certainly give us a call if you're coming a distance.
Jung's Garden Center, you guys have 7 locations now, right?
Yes, yep. We have our Randolph location, Stevens Point, Sun Prairie, 2 in Madison, and a pop-up in Appleton, and we just added Stoughton this year.
Oh, very impressive. And everyone has pretty much the same hours right now, these spring hours of 9 to 5, 9 to 4 on Saturday.
The other locations have a little bit different hours. I think they are 9 to 6, Monday through Friday.
Okay.
And 9 to 4 on Saturdays. I'm sorry, I don't know their exact hours. But those stores are open on Sundays too. So I think they might be 10 to 4. A little bit different hours than us. But certainly give a call to any of those stores and they'll be able to help you out as well.
Well, it's just another reason why the Randolph location is the crown jewel and the
Right.
Jung's crown.
We are the headquarters.
Bare Root Room is open. Lots of different shrubs there, lots of different fruit trees, which you guys don't have olive trees.
We do not.
But fruit trees, yes.
Yes. Yep. Apples, pears, peaches, some cherries. We did have an apricot, but I think those might be sold out.
Oh.
Yeah, a lot of different, mostly apple trees and pear trees. There are some smaller fruits that we have too. Goji berry.
Goji berry.
Yeah, they're just
Wow.
little honeyberries, blueberries, raspberries. We have all those as well.
And I did find this was pretty interesting, and I think you could only get it from the seed catalog, but you had some mushrooms as well.
Yes, they offer a mushroom kit, and that's a direct ship from that vendor. We don't actually have those available in our stores. But it's a box. Everything is right there. The soil that you need, the spores, it's all in the kit. And put it in a cool, dark place, add a little bit of moisture, and watch your mushrooms grow.
It's pretty magical.
It is.
But,
It really is.
I got to ask, before we wrap up our conversation here, Leah Stark, the garden doctor today, what are you growing? What are you excited for this year?
Being that we have peaches in stock, I think I'm going to try one of those.
Okay.
myself. I don't have a whole lot of time in my garden between work and kids and all that. But I usually do tomatoes and cucumbers and green beans, things like that, for things that I know that my family will enjoy.
Are you changing up your strategies at all? Are you doing any raised beds this year?
I don't do raised beds, but I do potatoes in containers. And I like to do regular potatoes, and I like to do sweet potatoes in containers.
Oh, do you find that works out better for you? Do you use like a 5-gallon pail? Or?
Bigger than that, I've got big nursery pots that I've saved over the years from different purchases. I use that. You can use like 30-gallon garbage can, anything like that. You have to do some modifying to it to, create the drainage and things like that. But yeah, because I don't have a large garden and I don't want to give up the space in my garden for things like that, because I can keep it a little more contained in a pot.
But you want at least 30 gallons of space.
Depends on what it is.
Okay.
Yeah. Potatoes they go deeper, and you're supposed to keep hilling up the around the plant. The tubers form under the soil, so the more depth they have, the more potatoes they'll produce. So the deeper the container, the more you'll have.
It's part of the excitement of gardening. It's
Yeah.
kind of it's a bit chemistry, a little bit of MacGyverism.
Yes, always a science experiment.
It is ongoing and so much fun. Where can people find Jung's Garden Center in Randolph if they've never been there?
We are located on Highway 73. Our address is 335 South High Street. That's the main Highway 73 that runs through Randolph, just a mile off of Highway 33. If you come up from Madison off of 151, just follow the highway. You can't miss us.
No, if you drive through Randolph and you can't find Jung's, you're probably driving in a blacked out car.
Turn around
or
and
something. Yeah.
Go back.
Turn back around. JungGardenCenters.com. You can also check out Dick is so excited about the YouTube channel, the Garden Doctor on YouTube.
Yeah.
And working on those raised beds.
Yep, they do a lot of videos and blogs for the YouTube, and it's definitely worth checking out.
Or just YouTube.
Oh,
but,
whatever.
I do the same thing all the time. I get called out. I think it's just
Yeah.
when you get old,
Right.
I'm not saying you're
Yeah,
23. I'm older than
Oh,
you,
right.
but because I'm 30. But of course, Leah Stark, it's always a pleasure to have you with us on the Garden Doctor. Anything else you want to impart on the listeners about what maybe we should be focusing on in this week of gardening?
Still a little too early to start cleaning up your beds, so I would hold off on that. Give yourself a couple more weeks before we start raking off the leaves and that. You can certainly do some pruning if the hydrangeas are right. The spireas, you can do anything that flowers early in the spring. Hold off on that. You want to wait until after they are done flowering to do any pruning on those particular plants. But general cleanup, just wait a little bit. I know that when the sun breaks and the temperatures start to warm, we're going to get antsy, and just kind of take a walk through your garden and make a checklist of things that you see that should be done.
Maybe make a journal, take a
Yep.
few notes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's very eager to get our hands dirty right now.
Yes, it is. And there's some bulbs that you can start forcing now, dahlias too. So put those in a pot. Begonias, you can put those in a pot right now, just to get going.
Well, thank you again.
Yes.
We're all excited about it, and we appreciate it as always.
Yeah,
And,
thank you for having me.
That will do it for today's Garden Doctor.
The proceeding was a paid program. Advice and opinions expressed during the program are solely that of Jung's Garden Center, not WBEV or Good Karma Brands.